And next we are going to Beverly Little Thunder. Beverly and I have moved in the same circles, and there have been times when we've been part of a very, very small group of Indigenous women in the midst of a lot of other women who had ideas about Indigenous culture and their entitlement to Indigenous culture in ways that we didn't necessarily agree with. And when I had to stand up and say, what you're doing is harmful, Beverly always had my back. And so I appreciate this grandmother, and I'm very thankful that she was able to have the time and the space to be with us here. So welcome, sister. Thank you for joining us. Beverly Little Thunder.
Oh, I give thanks for the privilege and honor of being here and the privilege and honor of my life in this day. I pray that those ancestors that have gone before me would come, sit with me and guide my words, guide my heart, open my ears that I might hear others, open my voice that I might share what Spirit would have me say. Help me to hear Spirit over my own ego. Help me, Tankashala, to remember those 7 generations who are yet to come, and to do all in my power to help create a world that is safe and sustainable for them. I thank you for inviting me to be here and to speak at this time. I come to you as a Lakota Two-Spirit woman, and I come to bring a subject that sometimes people don't want to hear, and that is women loving women, men loving men, non-binary, trans folks, people who are questioning. And all of those people are a part of our nation. All of those people are living amongst us and have been living amongst us for all time. When the settlers came and brought their beliefs and their traditions, they brought with them what they called religion. That was not so much a way of life as it was a dictate. It was a way of dominance, and it created dominance over by using guilt and violence to get people to do what they wanted them to do. It was appalling to me to think that there was a man who was so violently murdered and then be told that this man died so that I could be free. It made no sense to me. And I feel that the Creator is someone who loves us and has provided us with all that we need. And the only things that we were asked was to be loving and kind and to care for one another and care for the earth and all things natural. One of the things that these people who came told our people was that our Two-Spirit people were abominations, that they should not be allowed to be in our communities. And so for many, many years, a lot of our people hid their feelings, were shamed at how they felt. And in the last 100 years, many even left their communities to live their lives elsewhere and in places where they did not feel so attacked and were not told that they were these horrible, horrible human beings. In the last 40 years, 50 years, we have begun to step forward again. We have begun to insert ourselves in our communities and to reclaim our sacred space in those circles in our families. 40 years ago, after dancing the Sundance for many years, I announced and got over my fear and said, this is who I am. I'm a two-spirit woman. I was told that women like me were taken out in the desert and shot. And I was told that I could not stay at that ceremony. It was one of the low points in my life because these were family. These were people that I had prayed with, that I have sat next to in the lodge, that I had shared the sacred pipe with children I had held when they were born, who were saying these horrible things to me. I had been having dreams about this day and about this ceremony that I had participated in. And when two elder women came to me, both at separate times, and said, go somewhere and do ceremony for your own kind, it was an affirmation that I needed to pay more attention to what those dreams said. And so I did. I stepped away and I began holding ceremony for other two-spirit people. And I suffered a lot of ostracization, rejection, criticism. But I knew that I was following what Spirit had asked me to do. In the last 40 years, I have watched as more and more two-spirit people have stepped away from the bars and the behaviors that were so detrimental and hard for them to live with. And they have stepped back into that circle and began to follow the red road of their own people. Today, we have two-spirit people who are doing all they can within their communities to provide support for the young people. On my reservation alone, suicide is almost a way of life. And they're all young people under the age of 20. And many of those young people are people who are questioning their sexuality, their purpose of life, their reason for being here. And some of their parents don't understand that these children are theirs. And our children are meant to be loved unconditionally. We don't get to choose who our children fall in love with or what their paths in life are. The Creator does that. And so sometimes these children take the only way out that they know, and that's to take their own life. And today we are trying every way we can to provide support for not only these children, but for the parents, to help bring them back away from that oppressive teaching that their children are abominations and that it is wrong for them to feel the way they feel. We live in a world that is constantly changing. Our people have existed and continue to exist in a world that has gone through changes we may not ever have imagined. We may have had visions, some of our ancestors may have had visions that this is the world that we would one day live in. But could they have imagined the hatred, the anger, and the fear that human beings were going to be living with? Could they have imagined the destruction of the natural world and the mother that we live upon, the mother that sustains our life, our Mother Earth? And for those people who are not of an Indigenous people, they are Indigenous to another part of this globe. And they have long since lost their purpose for being here and have tried to inflict their beliefs on us, on our children. And so now we're back to square one, trying to teach not only our own people, but the world around us, that it is time for them to stop putting so much value on cars and computers and money, and start beginning to look at the earth that they live upon. It is sad to me that some of these people have gotten so far away from the original teachings that they now try to insert themselves into positions and places that were not theirs to begin with. And there are so many people out there who want to be Indigenous, who want to claim the Indigenous blood that they have in their veins that may have come from a grandmother 10 generations back who was European and happened to be sitting next to an Indigenous person at some point in time. They have gotten so far away from their own communities that they don't even know who their ancestors are. I have heard so many stories, and there are those people who will say, well, I know that in a past life I was an Indian princess. And I'm like, oh, okay. So now we have royalty. All right. And sometimes I have to say that in my humanness, my response is, well, I know I was white in a past life, but I can't tell you where I was from. Because it is so ludicrous to me to want to be accepted for something that I was in a past life. This is who I am here today. We need, as human beings, we need each other. And we need to respect one another. And that does not mean that we need to adopt the cloak of the person we sit next to. We need to honor and respect and learn the struggles that they have gone through to get to where they are today. I cannot fix what happened to my Jewish brothers and sisters during the Holocaust. But I have been able to educate myself to the horrors they went through. I empathize with them. I support them. But I would think, I would never think of going to a synagogue and inserting myself as a rabbi in their ceremonies. But yet we have people who do that to us. And that makes it so hard. Makes it so hard because we need each other. And I find that a lot of the struggle as a human being today, and a lot of the things that I want to teach those who are coming after us, is how we forgive these people and how we come together. How we come together with good feelings, not with resentment, not with anger, not with frustration. And how do we point out in a good way, my sister or my brother, what you are doing is harmful. And these are the ways that it's harmful. And to suggest ways that they can be a part of the bigger circle without having to center themselves. In the Two-Spirit community, we have these struggles too. We hear it all the time because people are lost. We live in a world where so many people have been torn from where they once came from, that they're seeking to find a place to be. And it is really, really difficult. And something that I pray about continually. To learn how do we embrace these people into our circle? How do we share what they need to know without sharing our own spirit? How do we stay true to what our ancestors have guided us to do without giving away that which is not ours to give away? I have been taught that it is not up to me to decide who is Indigenous and who is not Indigenous. And I strive to embrace and to accept all those that come in a good way. However, there are those who come not in a good way. Those who come wanting to gain profit, wanting to gain status, letting their egos guide everything they do. And as an Indigenous woman, I have been taught that when my ego guides me, it is because it wants status, it wants material riches. But when spirit guides me, it is something that benefits the whole, my people, my community, the earth. And in my 74 years, it's taken me probably the last 40 to really pay attention to that, to get away from judgment. As a Two-Spirit woman, I know that I have a place in my community. I know that in our ceremonies, I had a place. I had a responsibility. I had a task. I had things that were required of me, expected of me. And today I step back into those roles gladly and with humility. I reach out to those that are coming after me, for those young people who are struggling to find who they are, struggling to accept themselves. Because until we accept ourselves, we cannot be accepted by anyone else. And it's important to our Two-Spirit youth to know that there are those that have gone before them in a good way. That not all Two-Spirit people hang out in bars or at the wild parties that we hear about so many of the gay and lesbian community at large hosting. There is such a difference in how we see ourselves and our community saw us. And we don't fit in with that mainstream idea of being gay or being lesbian, non-binary, and all the words that are used. We are a part of our communities. We are a part of a circle that has existed long before anyone else ever set foot on our land. And as we come together and we move to the south, we have to remember that border was not ours to put there, that our people on the other side of that border were also Indigenous people, that they were communities very much like ours are up here. And that when we talk about the Americas, we talk about everything from north of us, from as far north as you can go to as far south as you can go. It's all one continent. We all traded with one another. We shared with one another. We visited with one another. And some people within our nations have forgotten that. And it has caused such division, causes so much division within our communities, within our tribal councils, even among our youth and our elders. And we are living in a time where that division is not going to benefit us. It is not going to benefit our great-grandchildren. It is not going to benefit the earth. We need to find a way to put those differences aside and come together. And the one thing that we have is that we have that ability to communicate as human beings. And I have been taught that it's important for us. It's important for us to learn to trust one another again, because that also is something that was lost and is now coming back within our communities. We're all here. We're all here talking in a safe and honest place, a place where we can speak from our hearts, where we can speak our truth. And our children need to know that they can do that too. We need to be able to listen to them. We need to be able to hear. We need to be able to listen to someone without formulating an answer to what they have said before they've even finished saying it. It is something that is a skill that we need to teach our children. And we need to let our children know that what they say is valuable. We need to let them know that their voices are not something to be shushed, that children should be seen and not heard. All of those are things that came with the boarding schools and with the nuns and priests that took care of the schools in the early part of the century. Our children need to be heard as well as seen. They need to be included. They need to be a part of that circle. And that is something that we are beginning to bring back. As grandmothers, great-grandmothers, and grandfathers and great-grandfathers, we now have that wisdom. And it may not have been wisdom that was afforded to all of our grandmothers and grandfathers who've gone before us. We're having to unravel all of the lies and mistruths that were told or forced upon our people. And so today, I spend most of my days working in my garden, collecting seeds, teaching my grandchildren how to do that, teaching them the joys of cooking a squash that they watch grow, teaching the joys of putting up the tomatoes that grew last summer so that they can enjoy them in the middle of winter. Teaching them that the animals that we eat do not come from cellophane wrapped packages in stores, but that these were living things, these were living beings. And that if we are going to eat chicken, let it be a chicken that we grew and that we loved and that we spoke with and that we honored and thanked for giving its life that we could eat it, that it nourished our bodies, and then let that nourishment be something that we return to others in a good way. Let us remember those that don't have a roof over their heads. Let us reach out to those that have not had the benefit of a warm meal. Let us show kindness like the little girl that the sister was just speaking of. Let us not show kindness with the caveat that, well, maybe I shouldn't give this person money. They might take it and use it for something I don't want them to use it for. A gift is a gift. Let us give those gifts without strings attached, without judgment. We don't know. My father used to tell me when he gave money to someone who was on the street asking for help, yes, I may give this money to this person, and they may go out and they may buy alcohol with it. But it may be that alcohol that keeps their bodies warm enough to get them through the night. I don't know. And that's not my business. My business is to be as kind as I can and to give what I can. And it's that I teach my grandchildren, and I taught my children. Because in the end, it is who we are as a person, the kindness that we show others, that's going to come back to us. I've been taught that everything is in a cycle. And so what you put out comes back to you. And it just continues that way. And it's much more important what you give than it is what you receive. And so, yes, like Marilyn, I give away a lot. And sometimes I'm told, how are you ever going to have anything if you keep giving things away? Well, I'm getting on in years, and I realize that when I die, I am not going to take any of this with me. So I just as soon give it away now and see someone enjoy it or benefit from it, because that will make my heart happy. Material things are not something that will last forever. But the teachings that we give are things that are going to last forever, because they are going to live on in our children and our great-grandchildren. And someday, there will be a two-spirit child who is born, who will be lifted up from childhood and honored and respected, and grow through their whole life knowing that they are a gift to their people, that they are a gift to their parents, that they are a gift to the world, and that they have a very specific purpose for being here. And so it's kind of amazing to me, because I didn't mean to say any of those things when I started. I had a whole different speech all prepared. I had all these little notes that were going to remind me of what I wanted to talk about. But I guess that's what I needed to say, and that's what needed to be heard. I am so honored beyond words, that I was asked to be a part of this incredible group of wise and wonderful people. And I thank you. Ilamia, the honey wash day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Beverly. I was thinking as you were speaking, because I didn't tell anybody what to say. People ask me, what do you want me to talk about? And I said, whatever you think needs to be heard right now. Right. And so one of the things that I had to come to learn as for myself in my life as a Skitchinui as an Indigenous woman, who's one of the most targeted people on the planet for violent crime, who grew up very poor. John Bear can attest to this. We had 6 kids sleeping in one room that was as big as a closet with one set of bunk beds. And we were happy, right? And you might think that your growing up in that way where we weren't allowed as native students to enter into any college prep courses in our local high school because the principal was such a racist. And he said that the students there, the native students, were too stupid to go to college. And, you know, you might not think that you have any privilege growing up in that way. And one of the things that I came to know is that I do have some privilege, and I have the privilege of being heterosexual. And that privilege that I had never recognized and took for granted was not a privilege that others who I loved very dearly had. And I was getting really emotional listening to you talk because I have an uncle who was a gay man who was the smartest person I've ever known. And he self-destructed. And at about my age, he died from liver failure because of heavy drinking, because he was never accepted, because who he was rejected. And you and I have talked about this and talked about how you have really been a grandmother and a mentor to young LGBTQ and Two-Spirit youth, right? And that in doing that, in taking on that role, you have saved their lives. And I want to honor you for that, because I think all of us have somebody that we love, that we care about, that has either not been able to or has found it very difficult to live because of the way that this world has, the people within this world have rejected their authenticity. And living without authenticity is something that can kill our spirits. And so I just want to acknowledge the importance of that role that you play. So thank you for that. And to tell you that I love you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You know, we all have privilege in some aspect of our lives. I grew up very, very poor. And I could name a dozen different ways that I felt others had more privilege than I. But there were ways that I had more privilege than they did. I had a community, no matter how dysfunctional the world may have thought it was. I had a community. And I feel that's why I feel so much compassion for white people who don't have that community, who have lost that community. And that's where the struggle for me comes, is in trying to have compassion for those that are trying to find their way and try to insert themselves as Indigenous leaders in a community that they were never a part of.
And, you know, that's another thing that you and I have talked about. And that's where I was saying that you had my back when we were out in on the other coast. And there were some people who were really appropriating Indigenous culture. And we've also had some experience in our local territory with those who have really been appropriating Indigenous culture and committing lateral violence against women, you being one of them, me being another. And people don't realize how harmful it is to do that. They think, you know, we're not hurting anybody, right? They don't think that they're hurting anybody. But when we hear the messages of all these elders, like we've heard today, And we hear the importance of carrying on those traditions, of being able to share the wisdom that we have been given by our ancestors to carry forward. The stories, the power of the stories. We heard about that this morning, the power of carrying those stories forward. And we see those who are adopting an identity based on something that they feel gives them something that they're missing.
Right.
But they don't have that depth of knowledge that comes from cultural continuity. And they impose themselves into positions of authority. They're distorting that message that our ancestors left. They're misrepresenting those stories and those truths that we heard were so important today. And so that's, it's really important for us to recognize that. It's also important for us to recognize that, people can decide who they are. They have a right to decide who they are. But they don't have a right to degrade who we are in the process. And that's the big thing.
And in appropriating those things, what they're doing is they're teaching the young people that come after them that it's okay to do that. It's okay to take what you want from another culture and adopt that for your own gain.
Mhm.
And it is not. And it's not what I want my children to learn, nor do I think any mother wants their children to learn.
Mhm. And so one of the things that we've always said in the in-person gathering for Healing Turtle Island is we come forward to share these things with you with a good heart and in a good way, because we want them to be able to touch your heart. But we're not sharing them with you for you to take and to claim them as your own. We're here to have you take the wisdom of whatever you hear here into your own heart that's meaningful to you, and to help use it to, as I just said with Diane Longboat, to enliven your heart and your mind, to guide you back into a way of living that's in alignment with the sacredness of life. And not to take, because that taking and that claiming of Native identity when you don't actually have that connection to that cultural way of being is what we call eighth wave colonization. It's like you've taken everything and now you want to claim our identity because now you feel that our identity benefits you in some way. It's just incredibly painful and hurtful. And so thank you for speaking truth to those very difficult subjects, and John Bear had talked about that earlier, that sometimes our stories are painful. Sometimes they're hard to hear. But sometimes the greatest act of love that we can offer is to tell the truth. And so thank you for being a truth teller here today. All right, now we're gonna move to another one of my brothers from another mother, Clint Shenandoah, who's from Onondaga Nation, and ask Clint to share with us some words that he thinks might be good for us to hear, or whatever's on his heart to share with us. Clint, Gwanude, welcome.
Hello. Y'all hear me? So I hope my Wi-Fi holds out like me. I don't fall asleep like my Wi-Fi might take off on me. So so if I cut out, then that's probably what it is. Down again, wadu sat young guy who thing. I ne do the West Hunyuk naga gwegi na guatona ne wadu. I ne naguatona de nungwe de nung de nijai na guatona. I ne Sherry and John Bear Gaye na Dogus na wadu na ne and White again Hassan na wadu I ne nega gwegi na no ngwe so ta cha de dat ka ye ne dogis ne with no vesonyuk. I ne nega gwegi I ne sungwaya di sai I ne sai 20 na ngwe so ta ja de. And I want to get dogis ne with no vesonyuk ne ga gwegi na ko tunda. Ne ga gwegi na ne got hoya I ne awadu na nega badade. And down again na eating again ho has ne ungiaji ne ungiachi na ne now and again Onondaga na ne tunige de na gwatuna now and again ska ye ne dogis ne with the west hunuk na ne wadu na ne eating again what hakwa na ga gwegi na ne is again agoda na ne sungwaya di sai na got hakwa ni wi hwa ke hun seni ke ha gang wadu na ne go da de now and again you got you again ne ga da yende na that na ne with that not deal we hwa we ho one it na ne go da de down it to the no dig na in swan go ha. So what I said was I thank Sherry and John Bear, my brother and my sister there, and for putting this thing together and carrying this thing on, especially with all these things that are going on today, and it's it's quite a difficult task to put something together like this. And so I appreciate Sherry and John Bear and all those that we don't hear about, or those that are behind the scenes as well, who are helping to put this thing on. And so I said I'm grateful that we're able to share our words with people around this world, and that also I'm grateful that I hear today that I'm just now listening, and I listened last night too as well, and I'm grateful for all those words that I heard that were shared on in this forum. And then I said I give thanks for I too give thanks for all the people here that are placed here on this earth, and give thanks for the Mother Earth herself, and that she can do her duties as the Creator had instructed her to do. And I give thanks for just everything here on earth, and that it continues to do its duties for our benefit and for our welfare and for our survival. And I gave thanks for the Creator himself, for this day, this beautiful day that we have, and given this opportunity to share, some things that are on my mind, I guess, and some things that I've been working on. I'm also introduced myself, and I said my name is Hohas, which in our language means he remembers. And so I was given that name when I was a little baby, and I carry that again into an adult. And also I said that I'm a Snipe clan, and my mother's Snipe clan. As many may or may not know, that our belief is that our identity comes from our mother, and so we're a matrilineal society, and that's who our identity is gathered from her, and that's where I come from. My mother was Snipe clan, and so on and so forth. So by announcing my clan, I'm announcing her mother, her mothers, and so on and so forth. So so that was always, I'm always trying to follow procedures as best we can, and kind of just show how protocols, how we always try for protocol. Everything has protocol. Everything takes so long. Everything takes so long before you even get into the ceremony. We have protocol. So it's always trying to follow the best we can to have protocol. And I also asked for forgiveness. I asked all of you and the Creator himself to forgive me that I'm going to use English to try and express myself and my thoughts, and because it's always proper to always trying to utilize our language, and because it's so important. It's it's really detrimental to who I am and who we are as Indigenous people. So so that was always the first thing that we always do, is just give thanks and show gratitude for those that are doing this work, and that they continue to carry on in that way. And so I guess there's a lot to share and a lot to talk about. It's hard to really to gather to understand the whole context of the the gathering, because I wasn't there in the beginning, and I missed yesterday, and I caught the end part. And so it's really hard to really gauge, kind of, I like to sit in a meeting and really sit and really get a sense or a feeling of what's taking place, and kind of receive messages I'm going along. And so if I am compelled to speak, I kind of have an understanding of what people need to be, what people need to hear, and what needs to be said. So it's really kind of hard to kind of get into that, that frame of being, I guess. So I'm going to do my best. And so I might jump all over the place. So, try to follow along and I'll do my best to try and, give what's on my mind. So I guess start with prophecy. It sounds like, well, I know, and people are, kind of wondering, what's going to take place. We're always thinking about, what the future might hold. And I know a lot of us who are listening, and a lot of Indigenous peoples have known about this time, time that we're living in now. And for me, growing up in our traditions, just a little guy, growing up, and one of my mentors was my grandfather, Leon Shenandoah. He was a Taradaho, and he has since passed in '96. But I remember growing up and in and around him and my grandmother, and listen to him all the time, and listening to just all the old ones that are passed on now. And he would always talk about prophecy, and I would sit for hours and hours, and he would tell me certain things, and how it all worked, almost. And so a lot of those prophecies now, it's not even prophecy now. We're actually we're kind of like in the middle of them now. We're kind of like in the beginning stages of things to come, really. And so this is what we're experiencing now, is kind of I guess it's preparing us, it's preparing our minds and our spirits and our bodies. And it's a really hard thing that we're experiencing now. And so a lot of the things that we've been experiencing collectively now, especially with the advent of technology, it's more immediate, right? So we're now seeing things, kind of in real time. And so we're able to really kind of get a real sense of some things that are going on, and not just in our own communities, but just around the world, So, and it kind of gives you even a broader perspective. And so I believe that, and a lot of our spiritual people believe that, we're in a kind of beginning stages, and of what's to come, and it can be scary. It can be scary, and I know a lot of our young people are feeling it, and that's what the anxiety is all about. I feel it too. I have anxiety sometimes, and for no reason, and it started years ago. I never had that before, and so I noticed that a lot of young people are having really, really harsh panic attacks, anxiety attacks, and I believe it started really. It kind of took place when I think this kind of took place, is what I'm seeing, is it took place when the earthquake in Japan. I believe it was in March of 2011, I believe. And so when that event took place, that earthquake, I think it was a 8 or a 9, and it's kind of like a historic kind of event. And it had a tsunami soon after that. It kind of coincided with each other. And I believe. They say that also, I guess, it was so severe that even Japan, the main island, even shifted, like, I guess it was 8 feet or something like that, or something like that. And the axis of the earth had moved like 1.5 inches or something, some phenomenal movement had taken place. So I think what has happened since that time to now is kind of, kind of shifted all of us. And so I think we're all experiencing, that different level of, imbalance, I guess you would say. So they say that the earth is wobbling a little bit differently now. And they also said it used to, it's progressively moving anyway, the axis, but and I guess also they said back in the 90s, it shifted to again, so a lot of those, I believe a lot of those events that are taking place is that our young people are picking up on that, and so they're having to deal not only with that, but then the idea of what the future may hold for them, and so I have to talk to a lot of our young people, and including my own family, my own kids, to reassure them that, things are going to be okay. We just need to, have our minds and our bodies to adjust. And I know I was saying this earlier, maybe 10, 12 years ago, and I didn't really understand it at the time, but I kind of have a little better understanding now. But I always felt like I had to take care of my mind and my body and my spirit. I had to take care of that. Someone kept telling me to say that to be ready. That's all it is. I can't think of the word in the language, but it kept coming to that way, like to be prepared, to be ready. And it was kind of like, it was just a simple word like that. And so for close to about 20, 30 years, and I always wondered what that meant, prepare yourself. It always, this feeling or this message, I don't know, there wasn't words, but the feeling that I got was to prepare yourself, and so that's what I did, prepared myself, prepared my body, and prepared my mind, and prepared my spirit. And I think in the last 5 years, I felt that big shift. I think when I was like 48 years old till now, I'm 52. So between that time and now, I felt a huge shift within inside myself. And I was questioning, kind of like what we're questioning now, is what is the significance of my life? Why am I doing what it is that I'm doing now? And does it mean, what does it mean? Does it mean anything? And this thought came to me, or this feeling, to means to what end? To means to what end? What does that, what does that really mean? And so I was always, and that still comes to my mind sometimes, to means to what end? What is it that I have to accomplish? And so between that time and now, I feel like I've transitioned and spiritually transitioned to who I'm supposed to be. And who I'm supposed to be is to be a helper, and that's what I call a helper. And so I help on many different levels, I guess. And not only ceremonial here in the community, I can help with ceremonials and different things like that, but I can also help with different things that people are suffering from. And there's different ailments that people have that maybe some doctors don't know what it is, and so we're able to kind of figure those things out and kind of help. It's not a healer, but it's more of a help to better the quality of life, I guess it's probably a better way to put it. So it's not like you're going to get cured, and there's probably no really such thing, but more so helping people's life to live better quality, be more at peace, spiritually and physically and all, and emotionally. And so a lot of my work that I've done, that I have been doing, is built in and around those four principles, which is, the spirit, the spiritual part, the mind, the body, and the emotional self. So those are the kind of the four major parts that I kind of assess, I guess you would say. I assess not only people, but I can assess certain situations in that matter, and pick up what kind of is lacking or what needs to be, I don't want to say fixed, but to help to be kind of in line again, I guess you would say. And so so I think that a lot of us, especially our young people, I heard about our young people, are having a hard time. And so a lot of it has to do with just reassuring them that, what they're feeling is okay, and that they're going to get through it. And I've helped people at different levels, where they're actually, in middle of a panic attack, and so it's helping them process, those things, and being with them, and addressing that, in real time. And then once they get through it, then we can process it again. And then they can see that they're able to get through that and able to manage that. And there's ceremonies that can go with that. There's things that you can do to help them. And sometimes it's more personable. It's more prescribe directly for them what they may need. So not everybody's the same, right? So everybody needs a little bit different, because we all kind of maybe raised a little bit different, or a lot of things that we don't understand about ourselves. And so that's been kind of my what I've accepted, I guess, within those. Like I was talking earlier, that I was transitioning, so I've accepted all those things. I accepted that the Creator gave me these gifts, and now it's my time to help. I always help, but I continue to help in a different way, I guess. And I'm still learning, and I'm still trying to understand it. And so some of the things that that come to me are in dreams, and so I write them down, and I don't quite understand them right away. So sometimes I work on them, I guess. And so I talk to different elders, and I talk to different spiritual people, and I come and listen to different spiritual people, in forums like this, and sometimes the answer comes. I'll be sitting here, and all of a sudden a dream will come back in a flash, and I say, oh, and I know what that means now. So sometimes it takes time to figure all these things out, and so a lot of the things that I've been working on lately is what keeps coming to my mind now is a dream that I had a while back, and I guess it was about October 2019. As I said, I write them down, I jot them down, and so this dream that I had, I think it's important, and because we're all listening, all over, wherever all the Mother Earth, we're listening, and I think it's important. And maybe somebody else might have another piece of this, right? So somebody might know what it is that I'm trying to understand. So the dream is that I was, and it's not a very long dream. I was with my family. I had my wife and my kids were with me, and it seemed like we were trying to get away from something. I don't know, something was going on, and so we were trying to find a place to kind of hold out, I guess, for whatever was happening, outside somewhere. And so we came to this house, and it was a really nice house. It was a very beautiful house, and so I went inside, and it was a really nice family, real nice non-native family was there, and they took us in, and I knew my family was behind me. I could feel them behind me, and so we all came in. And this young woman was showing me around. She was like, oh, she was showing me different places. She was showing the house, and it just kind of kept opening up. The house was, it seemed small, but as we were walking about, it began to open up some more, right? And so then we were walking. She was just talking. She was real friendly. She was real friendly. She was real nice, real kind. And so I got that feeling that these were good people. And so as I was getting further into the house, we went down a level, I guess. We didn't go all the way down, but there was another level we went down into. And then all of a sudden a feeling came over me that this person wants to kill us. These people want to take me and my family's life, and they're pretending to be nice. And I kind of got scared, and so I kind of fell back a little bit, let her go ahead of me. And then, she went into this one part of the house, and I went by, and there was this doorway to my left of me. And I stopped because I felt something there, right? So I felt, and I turned and I looked, and it was a really dark room, right? I don't know what it was, a closet or what it was, but I couldn't see. It was pitch black. And so I stood there, and I observed a little bit, and then I felt like something was standing there. How you kind of feel like somebody's standing there, but you can't really, kind of like a presence of something, but it was dark, it was pitch black. And I knew it was a being, some kind of being. It was very tall. It was kind of taller, almost tall as because it was high ceilings. It was kind of tall, and it was inside that doorway there. And so I felt that it wasn't good. And so I sat and I observed a little bit longer. I was looking, and then soon I saw this light come up behind this dark figure there behind the door. And so this slowly I saw something come from behind that figure, that dark figure. And then when it kind of moved to its left and it kind of looked at me, slowly kind of looked at me. And then it had like a light within inside itself. You know, it looked, it was illuminated. It was a face, and it looked maybe Asian. It looked kind of indifferent, I guess you would say. It was a very strange round face, and it had this kind of grin on its face as it was looking at me. So we looked at each other for a few minutes, and I knew it wasn't good. Because as I was standing there, I was trying to take my mind, I guess. I was trying to control my mind for some reason. And but for some reason, I was able to kind of push back, I guess. And I wasn't scared because I guess I was more curious than I was scared. I wasn't scared, so I was more curious about, you know, what this was and why it was just taking place. And then that head that was behind that dark figure slowly moved. And again, it had a grin on its face, you know, kind of like a very sinister grin, I guess you would say. And it slowly went back behind this dark figure, and then I woke up, you know, and I sat there, and of course I thought this to be a strange dream, and I didn't really fully understand. And I began to think about it some more, you know, some more days passed, and so it came to me that it kept saying AI, what is AI? You know, and that's what it kept telling me, AI. It's these words, I could see this, a capital A and I. I said, AI, what is AI? You know, what does that mean? You know, so I thought about it some more, and I forget, I was talking to somebody, but so it came to be that's artificial intelligence. It has something to do with something that on a major scale, like something is something that's going to be changing the way that human beings interact with each other, you know, and it's not going to be very good. It's not going to be a very a good thing that's going to transpire. You know, it's kind of like right now, you know, anything that's being created for the good can also be turned for the negative. So, you know, so it's kind of like what we're experiencing now with the technology. We're kind of a little early in this technology, right? We're still trying to understand it. And so a lot of people can be, a lot of things can happen, can transpire, you know, through you know, misinformation or you know, misinterpretation of what's being, you know, being said on these formats, you know, so things can be manipulated so that it can get a reaction, right? You know, so I think at some point, and because I remember listening to Thomas Banyanka. I'm sure you guys, some of you may remember him. He was a Hopi elder, and he had always talked about Hopi prophecy. And I always remembered, you know, listening to him several times. And he talked about and I found it, you know, kind of curious. And then, you know, because my imagination is, you know, kind of goes out there. But, you know, so that at some point that this technology is going to harm the people. It's going to, they said it was kind of like, it's going to take over, I guess. You know, the only way they could say it was that the lights and the appliances or not appliances, but the things, the cars and things will take over, you know, and will harm the people, will eventually harm the people. And so, of course, back then, you know, I'm talking 20 years ago, you know, I have no reference, you know, I have no real reference about how technology is nowadays is a big part of who we are, right? You know, you can go to your phone, you can turn your car on, and dim your lights, and, you know, turn your heat on. You can be way across the other side of the country and, you know, do all these things. You can look on your camera and do all these things, you know, and so it's kind of, you know, it's kind of a taking over, you know, the whole basic needs of human existence. So I think this, you know, this dream is telling me that, or at least me anyway, that we need to be careful of these things that are being developed, these things that are being put out there for not only for us but our children, right? We're just talking about our children, how influential they are, you know. And then I got two kids that they're on these things all the time, right? And well, not all the time, but you know, pretty much all the time, you know. So So there needs to be a balance, right? Just like everything else in this world, there needs to be balance and an understanding of these things that, you know, can be utilized as a good thing. It can be utilized as a good tool, like we're using the tool now too, right? We're using it right this minute to help people to, you know, come to an understanding, to a better understanding of where we are and how do we move forward, you know. And so so we need to, I guess, kind of like a warning, I guess, for, you know, for myself, and I'm putting it out there for you as well, to know that you know, we need to, you know, kind of take these things in stride, and not to let it fully take over, you know, who we are as human beings. And so part of that medicine, I guess you would say, or part of that counteraction to what it is that's it's in the future that's coming, you know, that's here, that's coming, even more so is, you know, is to go back, you know, to our old ways, to go back, you know, go outside, you know, go play outside like we used to when we were little kids, right? Go outside and enjoy Mother Earth, enjoy the, you know, the outside, and learning how all those things and how our relationship to those things are, you know, planting a garden and looking and seeing how those things work. And as a matter of fact, a lot of you know, a lot of the stuff that has to do with anxiety is we have to go outside. You know, the medicine's out there. You know, is we need to go out there and be a part of it. You know, and as much as we are being harmful to Mother Nature, she still loves us, right? She still loves us so much that she wants us to help us still yet, even though, you know, even though things are, you know, aren't too good in that respect. You know, so. You know, so I guess the part of the medicine is that we need now for all of us is to look at and to be part of and to understand and be out there, be out into the forest and be out there walking and listening and observing. And again, it's very beneficial to have a garden, you know, and to learn those things, because that's what's coming, right? They say that the foods will be depleted at some point. You know, the water is going to be scarce. You know, those are all our prophecies. I heard all these things, you know, all the things that we're hearing out today and seeing today are all here. You know, there's no more about what's coming. Really, it's you know, it's just, there's still time to make those changes, and but we have to do it. You know, we have to do it. All of us, not just the Indigenous people, but everybody. You know, everybody has to do their best to put in the work to kind of sustain what it is that we have left. You know, so I believe we can change this. You know, I believe there's still enough time to, you know, kind of correct this ship, as you would say, correct this vessel that we have here. You know, there's still some time. There's, you know, I still believe there's a lot of time yet. You know, but unless we, you know, take the initiative and do something, you know, as we try our best to do something. And so I always just think that protest was a waste of time. I used to think that, oh, what are we going to stand out there and freeze and do all this? But I understand it now, you know, and I understand it much better now. And it's kind of that, you know, that, you know, one thing affects the other, you know, and so it's kind of like this gathering that Sherry and John Barry and have developed this, you know, this way of communicating and pushing. They need to hear these things to help them, you know, kind of move forward. And so whatever it is, whatever format that we can, you know, kind of get our word or our message out there, you know, we should take the opportunity to do that. And so I've taken upon myself to do that, you know. So I've gone into even our outside community here. I've been invited to other forums here within the local community here, you know, in the city here, and in different, you know, other communities, African American community, you know, they're kind of reaching out to me, and we're reaching kind of, and so we're grabbing each other's hand, and we're going to go there and help them too, because they're looking for help too. And so we're going to take time, and we're going to go and sit with them and kind of help them, because the kids here are stabbing and shooting each other here right down the road here, about 6 miles is a Syracuse, city of Syracuse. And so I'm here in the country, but 5-6 miles down the road, there's you know, kind of not a major city, but there's a city, and they're having a lot of issues with a lot of the young kids, stabbing and shooting and just about every day, and so they're really trying to figure out, how to best proceed too as well. So we're beginning to see this unity that somebody was talking about. We're all finding these things that we're trying to connect and to help each other out and to support each other and encourage each other, to do what we can. We may not have I don't have the answers, but I'm willing to try. I'm willing to try. I don't give up, and because if I fail, then I know that then I know I can reassess, right? If I fail, that's something I can reassess and try and see what I can do differently and do better, maybe, and so there's going to be a lot of unity. I see a lot of unity coming, and it's already transpiring. It has been transpiring. So so it's coming to a point now where we're the last couple of years, this pandemic has brought a lot of things up to the surface, right? And it's been there. Racism has been there. It's still there. Hasn't gone anywhere. But I believe that there's some dark forces, I guess, or dark things that are in work, and they're trying to push that even further than what it needs to be, right? And so I hope I'm wrong. But I think by 2024 there could be quite possibly another racial war. It doesn't feel like it now, but I think it's kind of other things are helping it kind of calm it down, I guess you would say. But there are people behind it that are still trying to push that whole issue. So I hope I'm wrong. But I was feeling that early on, and I think 2024 is kind of where it's going to be it's going to be a difficult kind of transition. And I think along with the environmental impacts that are going to transpire between now and then, it's just going to intensify, right? Things are going to get more intense environmentally. So we have to prepare our minds for that. We have to prepare for those things, those things that are going to take place, these earthquakes and, higher winds, not even tornadoes, just high winds in particular. And the waters, so all these things are here, and all these things that I used to hear as a child growing up, or, I never imagined that I would see these things that are, that are in front of us now. And so it's up to us now to figure out how to best move forward. And the best way to move forward is just to try, to do our best and to stay close to our fires. Us Indigenous people stay close to our fires, and because that's where the answers are. All the answers that we need to move forward as Indigenous people and as human beings as well is right there, right in front of us. We have everything we need. We just got to pick it up and use it now, right? We have everything. Especially us Haudenosaunee, we have a lot of the I guess a template, maybe we may have a lot of the answers along with other Indigenous people, and if we put these things together, this information together, that like what we're doing, we can move forward in a better way. Because I think our white brother and our white sister are looking, for answers, because things aren't, things are real now. Things are, they're feeling it too, and so they're looking for answers, and I think we can, working together, we can figure this thing out, and like somebody said earlier, is that the children are watching, right? The young people are watching us. They're going to see how we're going to react to the situation. How are we going to move forward? And it's up to us. Really, it's up to us who are gathered here listening. It's up to us. We can either sit by idly and watch everything go, or we can have the courage to step in and help where we can, right? And the more that we help, it kind of adds a cumulative kind of thing. It can snowball effect into a good thing, right? And so we just have to keep pushing back with our ceremonies. We have to keep pushing back with the goodness, right? With the love and compassion that the Creator had given all of us. The Creator gave us, that's our first teaching. Our first, not only to give thanks, but the Creator gave us love and compassion. Those are the three first major teachings that the Creator gave us. He said these are our first religious, I guess you would call them religious, or a way of being that you're going to do. This is all that I require of you. In the beginning, and their dances and their songs came later, but they're all too giving thanks. So gratitude love and compassion, those are the things we need to go back to. Those are the original teachings of all human beings, not just Indigenous people. All human beings were given these, and we all have that, right? We all have access to that. So, like was said earlier, there's no need to misappropriate or appropriate other cultures, because we all have that. If you really just take a deep and an honest look at ourselves, we all have that ability to love and to have compassion. And if we move forward with that understanding, I think we could turn things a little bit better than they are now. So it's up to us. It's in our hands right now. And like I said earlier, I never thought in my wildest dreams that we would be at this point where we're actually seeing the words of our great prophet in 1799. This Handsome Lake, he was a Seneca chief who died and left his body, and we're seeing all these things of what's to come, and what's to come is here. Even back then, people had a hard time, accepting those words, because it was unheard of. It was not, it's almost like blasphemy, I guess, because how could that be? This is supposed to be forever. So, so I think it's, I think I have hope. I have lots of hope, because I see it. As much as there's negative, I see equal pushback, right? That's what I see. I see negative. Of course, most of us like to harbor on the negative, but I believe all the time, every time, they push back equally all the time. Otherwise things could be a lot worse than they are. So I think my time's up, right? Is my time up? So
Messaged John and I said, I don't know if you want to tell Clint or if I should tell him. And John opted that I should tell you, just so we know how courageous he is. That it has been 30 years since we sat with Thomas. That's how old we are.
Oh, really? Okay. I'll just keep us young. I'm trying to keep us young here.
I appreciate that a lot. But yeah, so you have a couple more minutes if you want to wrap up.
Yeah, so no, I just want to say that again, I'm just grateful, to be a part and to be honored to be asked to say a few things. And again, like I said, a lot of things that are going through my mind, and I'm always working on something. And if there's any other questions at any time, I'm willing to help in any kind of way. I'm willing to help whomever I can, and that's just been how all my life is now. I just kind of have to set things aside sometimes to just get in there and do the work, and just because there's nobody, you can't look back anymore. All the old ones are gone now, right? So it's us now. And so we just got to look in the mirror, right? I got to look in the mirror and who's that old guy with gray hair, I don't feel like my age, I guess, I forget how old I am sometimes. So again, I'm just grateful to be a part of this and to listen to everybody that I've heard and all these good things. And I just have hope, I have hope, and I know we can do this. I know we can, with all our efforts, we can change, what's occurring, maybe not to how it used to be, but maybe to where it needs to be, where we can all continue to sustain who we are, and the future generations sustain who they are. And those that are coming behind them, the faces that are coming from the earth still yet, the future generations. So again, I just thank you. And I don't mean to put you to sleep, Sherry.
It's not you, trust me.
All right, I know it's the age, right? We get
Yeah,
old and we take a nap.
it's the age, and there's a lot of moving parts here behind the screen, and we also have ceremony going on here at the same time. So I've been running back and forth, and
so it's not going to be too long, Clint, before when we were sitting there in those fires 30 years ago plus, when we were wondering how the elders could fall asleep sitting up and not fall out of their chair. I think we're almost there.
Yeah. You got to learn that technique. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's sitting in front of a screen for long periods of time is really exhausting. So it's harder to do it this way sometimes, I think, than to be in person.
All right.
Oh, all right. Thank you, Clint. I appreciate you being able to be here and taking the time. I know you also worked today and came home and sat with us, and so I appreciate you being here.
Yeah.
She really won. All right. Next, we are going to move on to our last two speakers. Okay, so we're going to go to Roberto first. So Roberto Mukaro Borrero. There's a lot of O's in there, Roberto. And Roberto is Taino, who has done an incredible amount of work bringing forward Taino culture here, and also helping young Taino people who are part of the diaspora finding connection to their cultural ways of being and ways of knowing here, and does a lot of really important work for Indigenous peoples around the world. And so I'm very thankful that you're able to join us. So I'm going to now turn it over to you.
Taigwe dituno da tia ono kwa itia ono diri Mukaro agwebana boriken taino daka kena kasike yukayeke da wainia daka koaidaka hanhankatu. Well, I began with the greetings in my indigenous Taino language, which is not English or Spanish or any other colonial language. I was told by my elders a long time ago that we, as indigenous peoples, as native peoples, should use our language as much as we can, even if we're not fluent speakers. We should share the words that we know whenever possible, because this practice is one that's good for our spirit and for our connection with the world around us. So basically, the greetings that I just extended, greeting you as sisters, brothers, as relatives. My name in my community is Mukaro Aguibana. I'm a Boriquen Taino, or Taino that comes, whose family lineage comes from the island of Boriquen, which many of you know today as Puerto Rico, and also a community leader, a cacique of the Weh'na Taino people. And so I'm very happy to be here with you all, and so happy, in fact, that I said it 3 times, as 3 is a sacred number for our people. So, like the previous speakers, I'm very honored to be here, to be included in this gathering called Healing Turtle Island. And I say, Hahom Daniki Itu. Thank you, dear Sister Sherry, and all the organizers for extending the invitation to me to listen and share among relatives. Some of you I know, and some I've not yet had the honor to meet face to face, but in the physical world. But I'm very blessed to have heard your words and songs and the wisdom that you shared. And so again, I say hahom, kwaiti aono. Thank you, relatives, for that. I was thinking a little bit about the title of this gathering, Healing Turtle Island, and I was thinking about how so many of our peoples honor that particular relative, the turtle. And for my people, the Taino people, uh, I was told that our first clan was the result of a loving union between someone called, that we know, called Deminan Caracaracol and Caguana, or the Turtle Woman. So, with that in mind, uh, I just like to begin with a song that helps me connect to that energy and also helps me to remember that I'm here to be of service. So I thank you all for your patience while I share this brief piece. Dakana boria atabeira. Dakana boria atabeira. Dakana boria atabeira. Dakana boria atabeira. Bomatum matabei bomatum. Bomatum matabei bomatum. Bomatum matabei bomatum. Bomatum matabei bomatum. Dakana boria atabeira. Dakana boria atabeira. Dakana boria atabeira. Dakana boria atabeira. Bomatum matabei bomatum. Bomatum matabei bomatum. Bomatum matabei bomatum. Bomatum matabei bomatum. Dakana boria atabeira. Dakana boria atabeira. Dakana boria atabeira. Dakana boria atabeira. Bomatum matabei bomatum. 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 Anankatu. I say once again, hahom guaitia ono, for your patience while I share that song honoring the earth and that universal energy that we Taino call Ataveira or Atabe or Caguana, as well as other names. And just to be clear, for the Taino, for us, the way I learned it was that when the universe started, because in the very beginning it was just kind of motionless and dark, and when it started to move, that first consciousness, when it started to move in that consciousness, it first began and manifested as a sacred feminine energy. And so we Taino voice that in our hearts, in our mind, in our spirit as Atabe or Atabeira. And really, what that word means, to share that with you, is really about, it kind of translates to, if we say Atabe, we say drink existence, or drinking the juice of existence if we extend it to Atabeira. And that brings to mind the sustenance that we get from our mothers in this physical plane. But really, that's what it's about, tapping into that consciousness of who that is, of who Atabeira is for us. So I think that this basic teaching is a simple yet profound understanding of where we come from. And that was so important for our people because that really grounded us in our relationships with our mothers. Even the word that we say in Taino for home, boyo, it really translates to your mother. So like when they tell somebody go home, they're really saying go to your mother. And even our lands, some of the land itself was called boyo because it was our home, but again, relating us also to our mother. And I think that, it's very important that I share that because if some of your listeners, whether they be indigenous peoples or others, uh, may recall that the Taino people were the very first indigenous peoples of this hemisphere, the Western Hemisphere, that were impacted by colonialism, which began in 1492. We were the first to be called Indians. We were the first to suffer from the effects of that horrific genocidal campaign that has continued in various forms across Turtle Island and even throughout the world against indigenous peoples. So, why I'm bringing this up is that as a people who knew that life began from the divine feminine, our way of looking at the world was a bit different from those who came across the waters to impose their views upon ours. Well, from their perspective, God was a male, and those who manifested God's will on earth were men. They were the kings, right? Uh, the leaders of their spiritual institutions were men, and everyone else was really seen as an inferior. And so that created a conflict right in the very beginning between our peoples, and that conflict, I would say, continues to manifest itself today. That imposition, that seeing the human man as superior above all things. I think that that's gotten us into a lot of trouble. This has affected the ways of my own peoples, especially the generations who came after that really horrific colonization period of the hemisphere. The way folks looked at themselves, the way folks engaged with each other, including children, women, and the world around them, right? And that includes also plants and animals and others. And I've heard various people, various relatives during this gathering also invoke the other relatives that we share this world with. And so that colonization, that idea of dominance over the natural world, is really what has been prevailing since that time in the mainstream for over 500 years. And this worldview is really in contrast to the worldview of my ancestors, who really strove for balance above all things. um, for example, I can share this. Many of our leaders, or cacique, were men. However, our people also had female leaders who held that title of cacique as well. So it just was not, a male-dominated role. It was a leadership role. And like some of the previous speakers, our family lineage was often traced along the female line, and it was also the women who also affirmed the titles and the implements of leadership, uh, upon those who would lead. So you really had to have the buy-in from the women in the community at that time, and those who are traditionally minded today. I would hope that they also would strive for that as well. So we could see the result of the oppressive doctrines that have been imposed upon us, doctrines that have moved us from balance, that in the Taino language we say nakan, and also respect, which we say bahari. So it's this oppressive doctrine, right? This kind of domination mindset that has really engulfed this world over these past 500 years, has really, makes us look at the world around us. We could see the result, right? Look at the world around us. You could see the pollution of the earth, and when I say earth, that means including the oceans. For us, that's paramount. We were and still are, island people, uh, seafarers, connecting with the creatures and relatives that inhabit the oceans. And so, for us, we were not just farmers and artists and um, diplomats, but we were also engaged with the sea as well. So I wanted to put that out there. But again, if you look at the way the world has been going, moving us away from that idea of balance, or that nakan, to what's going on around us, we see the effects of the pollution on the ocean, how it's really affecting sea life, bleaching coral reefs, affecting, from the smallest animals, the plankton, that affects even the largest animals, the whales. Once you start changing those patterns and warming those waters. So, we have acidification of the oceans, we have climate change, right? That's really, really causing havoc all around the world. And as indigenous peoples, we can see that no matter what the arguments out there are on the mainstream news channels, or what people are still arguing about, but we could see these changes in real time. I know we see them in the islands, and wherever I've had the honor to travel amongst other indigenous peoples throughout Turtle Island and around the world, uh, I can see the effects of climate change, and I can hear and I've learned from indigenous peoples, what they are going through as a result of the changes that are occurring in the planet at this time. So we have pollution, climate change, and even up to the recent pandemic, which many say that it began because of the lines that have been crossed and the abuse of the natural world. And as you know, this pandemic has been devastating for so many of our communities. I've personally lost friends and loved ones from this sickness. And even today, and this past week, my community is mourning the loss of another elder, Bibi Karaira Gandia. And so I'm aligning what I share today with her spirit and her immediate and extended family, our tribal community. Today, I feel that she would approve of what I have to share today, as we are Taino people and we are indeed a sharing people. So I think that she would approve of this and me doing this today. So I could say that with that in mind, as hard as this pandemic has been and continues to be, I think it also has given us space for some introspection and kind of reassessment as peoples, not only as Taino peoples, but really for the world. It's given us an opportunity to really look at what it is we really value as individuals and as peoples, and as indigenous peoples. It's really beyond individual, right? It's really we're really talking about communities and extended families and communities and nations and peoples. And so, being indigenous is not an individual exercise. There's a balance there. It's also being part of a community. And so I just wanted to put that out there. And even that term indigenous is something that, we didn't invent. We've kind of come to accept that term because it has implications in international law and standard setting. But obviously, we all have our own names for each other and who we see as human beings. But indigenous really has a context of being connected to international law, and that has to do with our rights and really our rights to land and resources. So, before we continue, I think it's important to stress that we're all human beings, but we're not all indigenous if we look at the standards that are set and if we're talking about our rights. And I think that's important for people to know because we hear this call and this demand for the respect of our rights so many times, from the beginning of colonization all the way up to Standing Rock and what's going on today around us. Look at what's happening in communities. We're talking about, hey, we're demanding our rights to be respected like everyone else. So getting back to what's happening today with regard to the pandemic, I really wanted to highlight how moving it has been for me to really see the resilience that has once again risen to the occasion. And our people are famous for resilience, and that shouldn't get anyone out of their responsibilities to act and to fulfill their accords according to treaties and other constructive arrangements that we have with other nations around us. But our people are resilient, and during these times, I've seen this manifest quite a lot, and I've been quite proud to see. There's this movement about coming back to the basics. I think some others have kind of talked about this too during this gathering, and this is important for me because when I was younger, I heard that from the elders that we as human beings, we often make things very complicated, and they really don't have to be so complicated. My folks in Boriking suffered just a few years ago from a massive hurricane whose power was increased, they say, by climate change. And that was followed by a few earthquakes and now COVID-19, as well as really an oppressive governmental impositions by the US. And our people are continuing to deal with this, and not only deal with this, but rise up and really manifest their resilience. And they're coming back and asking questions and seeking guidance about our traditional ways. I see this more and more, especially among young people who seem to be a bit disillusioned with this world that's kind of been portrayed as the way to go, that's risen all around them and distracting them from the real instruction. So I see a lot of folks coming back, and you know they're seeing that, for example, their food security is not so secure, and that our spirituality is not one that's based on fear, but it's really one that's based on harmony with the world around them. And I think that that is resonating to a lot of our younger folks. So they're coming back, asking questions, they're getting involved in back to the earth activities, organic farming, community gardening. And I see this everywhere from Boriking, from the islands, even to a place like the South Bronx. I'm thinking of a place in particular that we work with, Friends of Brook Park in the South Bronx, and that idea is also manifesting there. That need to reach out and what we grow, share that with others in the community, and so I've been seeing all that. So really, with that in mind, my good news is what sustained our peoples once physically and spiritually, it's really still there. And let me add some context to this. So some years ago, I was told by some elders, and there was some news that came out of Boriking that a baby manatee. I'm not sure if everybody's aware of what a manatee is. It's sometimes it's called a sea cow. It lives in the water, and for Taino people, we could say that that would be on par, similarly to what the buffalo was to many peoples in the North American mainland, many indigenous peoples. So that manatee was very important to us as well. But because of the impacts of colonialism and the lack of respect for the environment, we've seen a real decline, and including climate change too, that's also affecting them. We've seen a real decline in those numbers, and they're not around like they used to be. And so there was a baby manatee that had returned to a certain lagoon that ancestrally they used to kind of congregate there. And so there was some news articles and some news media about this. And so the elders looked at that and they said, you see, you know, that manatee understands, right, and is showing us that, once what was once still there that sustained us is still there for us if we want to access it respectfully. And I want to add that respectfully because they weren't saying, oh, there's a manatee there, now go out and hunt that manatee. No, they were saying that that idea, that connection, that sustenance that we had in the physical, but also the spiritual sustenance was there, but we had to access that again. So, why I'm thinking of that and why that's so important is because a few years later, I was working with a dear relative of mine, Chief Orville Looking Horse, and I heard Sherry talk about him earlier, and we were organizing the World Peace and Prayer, a pipe ceremony in honor of the UN International Day of the World's Indigenous Peoples at the United Nations. And this was right around the time when we saw uh, a new manifestation of white buffalo that were being born around the U.S. and Canada. And what's interesting, though, right around that time when the appearance of these white buffalo were happening, there was a bull manatee that was coming up from the south, from Florida, making its way up the coast, and actually came into the river here in New York, right by the UN, and actually made it up there right around the time of the UN International Day of the world's indigenous people. All this was happening at the same time, though few really noticed that or understood it. But our elders did see it and understand it. And again, they made the point to tell me that, again, what they're saying is that what once sustained our peoples physically and spiritually is still here. We just have to access it respectfully. And so, while you're thinking on that statement, I want to share these final thoughts. Uh, because among the reasons that Taino peoples were so successful in the past before colonization, why they expanded across such a large territory with language and culture. When I say large territory, I'm talking about the Caribbean islands all the way into southern Florida. So for those who think that, we're part of this kind of immigrant experience, no, our peoples were already here in the U.S. mainland or the North American mainland, however you want to describe that, before colonization. We had already interacted and were trading with people in the North American mainland from Florida, like we were trading and interacting with our relatives in the South and also in Central America. Remember, if you look at the Caribbean islands, if you look at that connection from Florida to the Bahamas to those chain of islands that connects to South America, and then you come around to Central America and that Gulf of Mexico, that's really the sacred hoop from our perspective, because it connected all of our peoples. And at that time, we weren't didn't have all these preservatives and harmful things in our body. Our people were building canoes, which we say in our language canoa, where you get the word canoe, uh, that could hold 150 people, and they were going from island to island and making those trades. They were strong people back then, and so we were connected. We were here. We're not living in isolation, right? And that's really the key that I wanted to share as I end my presentation today, is that our people never lived in isolation, although the history books might have tried to portray us like that. Indigenous peoples were in very good contact in the past before the colonization period. We could say BC, before Columbus. And we were interchanging, we were exchanging, we were intermarrying. Our folks would intermarry uh, families from village to village, not only within the islands, but from island to island, all the way into the mainlands. And so, that's really important to understand. So when we were traveling, it's not like we were coming in as strangers into many places, but we were coming in as relatives. And so that's why I think that it's important that we kind of refine, understand, revisit that, refine that, and really enter into this next phase, because we're going to need each other as we move forward. There might be some information that your peoples have that's important, but I can tell you, if we're looking at the southern door and we want to honor the southern door, as what Sherry set up today and as a theme of this gathering, we need to look at our relatives in the south. That includes Taino and other people. We need to understand what's going on in Brazil, what's going on in the other places where some indigenous peoples are living in voluntary isolation, right? Because they don't want to be contacted by what's going on around them. We have to look at that ancient knowledge. We have to rebind those ancient ties, redo those ceremonies together. So I really feel fortunate that in my time, I've seen our people coming together from island to island. Uh, my folks have been working with Carib peoples or the Kalinago, as well as Lakono Arawak and others, reforming those ancient ties, doing ceremony together, helping each other out when there are natural disasters. But we've also extended that ideal, that treaty making ideal, indigenous to indigenous treaty making, even here up into the northeast of the U.S., where we work with the Schaghticoke First Nations. We do a lot of good work with them, the Ramapo, Lenape, and others. And I was personally very happy that I was able to help get some PPE uh, to many tribes in this area and around the U.S. As a Taino, I felt good about doing that, but it's also something that we should look to doing. We should look to strengthening each other, not building each other down. Some of our folks are even in the prison systems, in territories that they didn't originate. And those people should be helped out by the tribes that are in those areas to really come back to their natural ways, not hindered. And I could share more stories about that at another time. But we're talking about unity, and that's what we need in the future. We need to share those stories. We need to really come together and really come together in that strength, because it's not only for us, but this world needs us and our values and our teachings and traditions at this time. And so, with that, I want to end with a song, a short song. I'll just sing just a short part of it that we sing now to honor in the same way that our ancestors sang to honor the winds that come in, those winds of change, and we sing to them respectfully. And we know that what those winds are about. We're not afraid of them, but those winds are coming, and we're prepared, and we're prepared to meet them respectfully and in harmony. Oh, kama alakoel. Oh, kama alakoel. Aquí acabo, alakoel, huracán. Aquí acabo, alakoel, huracán. Oh, ma baharina boridaka. Oh, ma baharina boridaka. Oh, kama. Oh, kama, harakoel, harakoel. Aquí acabo, harakoel, huracán. Aquí acabo, harakoel, huracán. Oh, ma baharina boridaka. Oh, ma baharina boridaka. Oh, kama. Oh, kama, harakoel, harakoel. Aquí acabo, harakoel, huracán. Aquí acabo, harakoel, huracán. Oh, ma baharina boridaka. Oh, ma baharina boridaka. Oh, kama. Oh, kama, harakoel, harakoel. Hahom, hanhankatu, hahom guaitiaono, for your patience with me. And it was an honor to be here. And I thank you so much, Sherry, for inviting me. And I look forward to remaining in contact and hopefully having an opportunity to meet some of you in a physical gathering at some point soon. So again, thank you so much, Sherry, for this opportunity to be with you.
Thank you so much, Mukaro. I appreciate everything that you shared. I mean, those words are so important. And the story of the manatee is just so powerful, right? In its simplicity, that it just if we're paying attention, everything that our ancestors knew that they tried to convey to us, they watched by watching their ancestors in the natural world. They learned how to be in relationship with life by watching those ancestors. And so that manatee showing us that everything that we need is still right there where we left it, where we set it down when we walked off from that path that leads us back to life. And so that was a beautiful reminder. And I also want to thank you for providing PPE to us up here in this territory for our tribal clinics. We really appreciate the work that you do and the ways that you're always looking out, not only for your own people, but for all Indigenous people. So Kachiwili one for all the work that you do. Thank you. All right, and next we're going to go to your beautiful wife, Jocelyn. Jocelyn, Gwanude, welcome. I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Hello. Masayeti achoni. Kaxyec yuchat duasach. Linkit ayachat. Dachloedi ayaye chat yeti. Gosh na chat siti. Hakusti haji awati. Ya linkit ani. Sagat ya slat kahin. Tuadak ye kugak kusti. Galashish achli. Galashish achla. Galashish takiyankau. Warm greetings. Hello. And how are you, my friends and relatives? My name is Jocelyn Kaxyec. I am Tlingit. I'm from the Eagle Killer Whale clan of the Wolf Moiety. My hometown is in Teslin, Yukon, Canada. My traditional lands of the Clink, it runs through Alaska, British Columbia, and Yukon. Our way of life was given to us by our land. We are part of the land and part of the water. I acknowledge our ancestors. I acknowledge my grandmother. I acknowledge my mother. And I also give thanks to our Creator. So today I've been listening to everyone else speak before me today, and I just want to give thanks to each and every one of you for sharing your knowledge and your experiences, and for the reminders too. There's a lot of reminders there, you know, to keep on going, and that sense of reciprocity with everything, with everything and everybody that's around us. That's very important, I think. I also, for those of you that know me personally, know that I'm a very quiet person. I don't really speak too much or too loudly. I'm one of those that sits back and observes, and I don't always contribute my voice, but today I want to exercise speaking and using my voice. And for those out there in the audience who are watching today, I also want to encourage you, the ones that are like me, that are quiet and watching, to step forward and use your voice, because we need to hear you too. Today, I felt, or for a long time actually, I've been feeling a lot of heaviness, and I know that I'm not alone in that, in our current world situation with the pandemic, and it's been very challenging for everybody. And another layer of heaviness that, you know, I continue to pray for all of our people. You know, unfortunately, in the North, in my home communities, in the month of January, we suffered 8 deaths of our youth in their teenage years, in their early 20s, in their 20s, due to the opioid crisis. And my heart just goes out to my community, to all the families that are affected. And yes, it's a lot of painful emotions that go along with that, but listening to the prayers and the offerings today really help, you know, with this strength to keep that peace of mind, and to keep praying, and to keep do good. Make the choice of doing good in your community, and within your own family, and within your own home. You know, embrace your loved ones. Say I love you more often. Acknowledge and appreciate those people, your loved ones. But I also, with that, you know, with these challenges and the loss of loved ones, you know, for myself, I envision that invisible thread that runs through us, and that thread is the matrilineal line. You know, I imagine myself on that thread, and along that thread I have my daughters. Along that thread I have my mother, my grandmother, my great great grandmothers, all in that matrilineal line, and the strength that holds. And also thinking about the great great grandchildren that are also on that thread, that are coming, that are yet to come. So what we do now in this time, that vibration along that thread, it affects us all. The strength too that's there, you know, you hang on tight. So with that, I wanted to offer a song today. It's a Tlingit song. And the English translation of the song is, "We shall once again open this container of wisdom that's been left in our care." And the interpretation and perception of that can go in many ways, but I feel that that wisdom that's been left in your care is the DNA and the cellular memory and that matrilineal line, that thread. You know, it's vibrating, and it's awakening our ancestors within ourselves. Remember the strength that's within us. Ancestors are within us all the time. So with that, I offer this song. Tsuhere shuga tutana, tsuhere shuga tutanya ya kusita kita jehana askara kite. Hey, hey, hey. Hey, 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 hey. Hey, 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 hey. Tsuhere shuga tutana. Tsuhere shuga tutanya ya. Kita jihana askara kire. Hey, 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 hey. Hey, 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 hey. Sheesh. Thank you so much for inviting me into this space and to share a little piece of me and my thoughts and my Tlingit ancestry and my ancestors and grandmothers that are using my voice today to speak out. And with that, I give thanks once again. Sheesh.
You know, Jocelyn, you are always the quiet one in the back, and you don't say much. But when you do have something to say, it's very powerful and it's worth listening to. So thank you for bringing your voice here today. And I just want to say how synchronous it is, because at lunchtime, when I went out to do ceremony at the fire, we prayed for our matrilineal lines. I prayed for my mother and my grandmother and my grandmother's mother and grandmother and her grandmother and mother and mother and grandmother, all the way back to the first woman. And then we prayed for all of the children that were born of all of those women, going all the way to the end of time. And so it's so important for us to remember to pray for those who give us life, and to pray for the spaces within them that carries all life into this world. Because if we can heal that first environment and provide those children a safe place to grow, then we're giving them, a strong beginning to put their feet in this environment that they're born into here, when they transfer from the birth mother to the earth mother. And so I just felt in real resonance with what you had to offer, because we had made those prayers earlier today. It was like you were here with us. And so you were. And that was a really beautiful way to remind us that so many of our relatives are suffering, and that we have the medicines that are needed to help heal them, right within our own traditional ways of being and ways of knowing, and to always remain mindful of the fact that we carry our ancestors within us and carry that knowledge within us. So Kachiwaliwan, thank you so much for bringing that message and for ending our day on such a beautiful note. And it's so good to see you too. And I can't wait to have you here at Wajukam Tiltina. And also that wandering Scatticook fellow we know, and his wife, when they come back, to have you all here to walk on this land with us would be really nice. And so we can plan our trade routes in the Northeast. So we are ending our daytime session. We are going to be moving into our dinner break, and then we will come back at 7 p.m. with our final session of the day, which will be the Northern and Eastern Asian delegation. We have 7 elders and teachers who are coming to us from Mongolia, Siberia, and Kyrgyzstan. And so they have also been holding their fire there. And they will bring us messages from their fire tonight from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern time. And so we're going to close this part, and we will see you again for the final session of Healing Turtle Island in a couple of hours. See you at 7. Have a good night.